a 2, 0, a 1, and a 0. But we are updating row 3. So the value that goes in here is going to be, so the value that goes in here is going to be row 3's current value minus 4 times row 1's current value. Okay? So row 3's current value is 4. We're going to take away minus 4, sorry, we're going to add minus 4 times row 1 to this value, which gives us 4 minus 4 gives us a 0. Okay? Now, what we're going to have here, okay, is row 3's current value, which is minus 7. Let me actually just write this down. It's minus 7. And what I need to add on to it is minus 4 times row 1's current value, which is minus 3/8. Okay? So that's minus 7. Okay? Minus times minus gives us a plus. 4 times 3 gives us 12. So that's 12/8. Okay? So what is 7 as represented as a proportion of 8s? Yeah? Okay? Well, if you think about it, minus 7 is the same as minus 7 times 8/8. Okay? Because 8/8 is 1 times minus 7 doesn't change it. So I need to add on to that 12/8. 7/8 is 56. So this gives us minus 56/8. Okay? Plus 12/8. Okay? Now, minus 56/8 plus 12/8, okay, is going to give us a value of minus 44/8. So actually the value to go in here is going to be minus 44/8. Okay? The value that goes in here is row 3's value minus 4 times row 1's value. So let's just do that. Okay? So when we do that, now I'm going to use the calculator from now on, yeah, okay, but when we do that from a fraction perspective, yeah, okay, row 3's current value is a 6, so it's a 6 minus 4 times row 1's current value. Well, row 1's current value is minus 5/8. What does that give us? Well, that gives us 6 plus 28. Now, what is 6 represented as a proportion of 8s? Well, that's 6 times 8/8. That just gives us that. Plus 28. 6/8 is 48, so that gives us 48/8. Okay? Plus 28 gives us a total of 68/8. So actually the value to go in here is 68/8. Okay? What about this value in here? Well, this value here must be row 3's value minus 4 times row 1's value. So it's going to be, this is where I'm going to start using the calculator. Okay, whoops, what's happening here? Okay, normal mode. Okay, so it's row 3's current value, which is 0. Okay, and I need to take away from it minus 4 times row 1's current value, which is 1 divided by 8, and that gives us a value of, it's minus a half. So minus a half goes in here. Okay, the value that goes in here is row 3's current value, which is a 0, minus 4 times row 1's value, which is a 0. So we're actually going to get a 0 here. What goes in here is row 3's current value, which is a 1, minus 4 times row 1's current value, which is a 0, which gives us a 0. So that's just 1 minus 0 gives us a 1. Okay. So you can see this is getting a little bit complicated in the sense that we've introduced a lot of fractions, and the fractions look quite complicated looking. Okay. But it's important that we work in fractional mode and with rational numbers, okay, and that we don't convert these to decimals, yeah, okay, that we keep working with fractions, because that will make this, that will help us to solve this particular problem. So what I've actually done now at this stage is I've converted the first column, okay, we've got the pivot on the first row, okay, and every value below it has been converted into a 0. So what I do now is I move on to the second row, okay, and I go to the second entry on the second row, and I convert that to the appropriate pivot, which should be a 1, which is already a 1, so there's no operation that we need to do here. Okay, so what I do is I go on to the third row, okay, and I proceed to convert everything underneath the pivot, okay, which is this one here, into a 0. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to convert minus 44/8 to 0. Now, how could we do that? Well, I could add on. Don't forget, this is row 1, row 2, row 3. I could add on to row 3 44/8 of row 2. So let me actually do that. Let's say that row 3 becomes row 3 plus 44/8 times row 2. Okay? So let's do it. So the only row that's changing is row 3. So we have row 1 is the same. Row 2 is the same. Row 3 is getting updated. Okay, so the value that goes in here is row 3's current value, which is a 0. Let's do that. So it's a 0 plus 44 divided by 8 times row 2's current value, which is a 0. Okay, which is actually going to give us 0. So we sort of knew that. Okay, the value that's going to go in here is row 3's current value, which is minus 44/8, plus 44/8 times row 2's current value, which is a 1. So it's 44/8 times 1 gives us 44/8. So when I add these two things here together, I'm going